Welcome to Bosco Campus Vision. You're watching the campus television channel of Don Bosco College, Kottayam. This lecture is on the prescribed syllabus of first semester BA English Literature and Language. Paper is Introduction to Literary Studies 1. In this lecture, I am going to deal with the next types of poetry, that is the elegy and the ballad. The elegy. An elegy is a word derived from the Greek word elegia, meaning lament. It is a lyric poem which laments the death of a person or meditates on the fact of mortality in general. Any poem written in elegiac measure was called an elegy in ancient Greece, where the form originated. The elegiac meter is a couplet composed of a dactylic hexameter and a dactylic pentameter. So meter is a rhythmic pattern of poetry, and that is created through the recurrence of certain sound units. So we'll study this different types of meter and all in the coming lectures. In modern usage, it is the theme that matters and not the meter. So it is not necessary to use the elegiac measure in writing an elegy. In elegiac verse, every other line is pentameter rather than hexameter. Thus, lacking the foot, it would need to be properly epic. The elegiac stanza is a quatrain of iambic pentameters rhyming A, B, A, B, and this named after its use in Gray's elegy. Some of the examples of the elegies are Milton's Lycidas, published in the year 1637, and this mourns the death of his friend Edward King. Next is Shelley's Adonais, published in the year 1821. In this, the poet mourns the death of John Keats. Next is Tennyson's In Memoriam, published in the year 1833-1850. In this, the poet mourns the death of Arthur Hallam. Next is Arnold's Thyrsis, published in the year 1866, and in this poem, the poet mourns the death of H. Clow. Next is Thomas Gray's Elegy written in a country churchyard, published in the year 1751. This poem is one of the most well-known elegies in the whole canon of literature. In the poem, the narrator is standing in a country churchyard in the evening and he mourns the death of countless ordinary farmers. Sometimes this mourning the dead serves only a starting point to discuss many other themes, as in Lycidas, in which Milton digresses to discuss about the corrupt clergy and the vocation of the poet. In Memoriam can also be called the spiritual autobiography of the poet, and it deals with the question of faith. Next is the Pastoral Elegy. It is a form of elegy which originated in Greece, in which the mourner and the mourned are presented as shepherds. This form is believed to have been pioneered by Theocritus, the Greek poet. Later it became some sort of a convention in the hands of Virgil. For example, Milton's Lycidas, Shelley's Adonais, Arnold's Thyrsis. All these are some of the examples of the pastoral elegies. Now let's see some other famous elegies like Walt Whitman's When Lilacs Last in the Dooryard Bloomed, published in the year 1865-66, and this is about Abraham Lincoln. W. Jordan's In Memory of W.B. Yeats, published in the year 1939. Matthew Arnold's Rugby Chapel, published in the year 1867. The next type of poetry is the ballad. The ballad is one of the earliest forms of literature in English. This was originally intended as a narrative song, usually in an unhappy strain and containing a refrain. It is a story in verse which is orally transmitted. It is derived from the Latin word ballare, which means to dance. In the beginning, it was associated with dance and later it developed into a form of folk verse narrative. Ballads feature objective or impersonal narration. The majority of folk ballads deal with themes of romantic passion, love affairs that end unhappily, or with political and military subjects. In the method and style, there is simplicity and rapidity of narration. Many ballads have immense dramatic power and wonderful metrical beauty. In a ballad, the story is usually in dialogue form, in direct and unsparing language. It is arranged in the ballad stanza, which contains a quatrain with the second and fourth lines rhyming. Most often, they have refrain, which are regularly repeated lines or stanzas. For example, a ballad that deals with a tragic love story, that is The Highwayman, written by Alfred Noyes, published in the year 1906. In this, a dashing robber falls in love with Bess, the innkeeper's daughter. Unfortunately, due to a jealous suitor, Bess ends up killing herself to save her lover, and then he returns to be killed by the soldiers. In addition to the refrains, ballads usually have some stock phrases like milk white hand, blood red wine, merry men, dear daughter or daughter dear, pretty babe, etc. Incremental repetitions in which a line or a whole stanza is repeated with an addition of something that helps the story's progress is also a feature of this genre. Broadly speaking, ballads are of two types: traditional ballad and literary ballad. Traditional ballad. Traditional ballad is also called the ballad of growth or authentic or folk ballad. The authors of these ballads, which have been preserved through the oral tradition, are anonymous, and scholars believe that many of these ballads have multiple authors. For example, The Nut Brown Maid, Chevy Chase, The Wife of Usher's Well, and Sir Patrick Spence's. There are other hundreds of ballads which narrate the Robin Hood story, like Robin Hood and the Monk, Robin Hood's death. Next is literary ballad. Literary ballad, on the other hand, is a conscious attempt. W. H. Hudson calls it a literary development of the traditional form. Walter Scott, Coleridge, and Wordsworth wrote the ballads influenced by Thomas Percy's Relics of Ancient English Poetry, which was published in the year 1765. And this Relics of Ancient English Poetry is the first important collection of Old English ballads. His collection brought about a great revival of Romanticism in English literature, signaled by the publication of William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge's Lyrical Ballads in the year 1798. Other examples of literary ballads are Sir Walter Scott's Eve of St. John's, published in the year 1800, Coleridge's Rime of Ancient Mariner, published in the year 1797-98. Keats' La Belle Dame sans Merci, published in the year 1819. And Tennyson's Lady of Shalott, published in the year 1842. Next is Broadside Ballad. A broadside ballad is printed on one side of a single sheet and usually deals with a contemporary issue. In the 18th century, a broadside ballad was a ballad printed on newspaper, that is broadside, and sold in the streets. A popular form in England until the rise of the daily newspaper. Next is mock ballad. Mock ballad is a form of literary ballad, and this is a comic theme is presented with the seriousness appropriate to a ballad. For example, Cowper's John Gilpin. In this lecture we discussed the different types of poetry. One is the elegy and the other one the ballad. Do the given exercise and submit on time. Thank you.